So just to give an idea, 2011, $40 billion annually in telecom fraud. 2013, $46 billion. 2015, 38. We are scaring people. My first Astricon, we had somebody come up to us at the end of the day after we had our first security panel. This is the one that you can see the YouTube clip. Yikes, $400,000 fraud. We did not know that was being recorded. We were told no panel was being recorded, and one of the guys in the audience, Tom, picked up and used his iPhone to record the session, so you get the back of people's heads. Otherwise, I don't think they would have told us things. At the end of the day in the bar, we're sitting there, and one of the guys comes up and goes, "You scared the fucking shit out of me." And this has been the benchmark for all of our talks ever since. If I cannot scare people into understanding telecom fraud is real, $25,000 to $50,000 a hit in under 2 days, usually holidays or weekends. Most of it is premium rate fraud. They hack a system, they get in, they go and they make calls to all sorts of funky places. Cuba, Somalia, etc. In the UK, you can get a premium number for £1.50 a minute. A pound of that goes to the actual company, the customer. BT takes 50p. At 200 calls a minute off of your average IP PBX, that adds up pretty frickin' fast. Okay, so we'll be talking about some of those cases. Okay, types of fraud, just to compare. PBX and voicemail versus internal theft, people logging in, the cleaning lady or somebody after hours making calls they shouldn't. You see how the numbers jumped from 2011 to 13. It was more than double. And it's, again, going down. Now, I've combined here the IP PBX and the regular PBX. Okay? But to look, these are surveys. You can download them off of the internet. And this is how they break down the various kinds of fraud. And you'll notice the various kinds are getting, here it was relatively few. Here you're getting a hell of a lot more types of fraud that are coming in. Some of them are going away. So, things that are in the news since last year in terms of fraud that you should be aware of. I'm going to start with the fraud. I'll go to the law at the end. Okay? What I'm not talking about in this talk, all of the various voice-related fraud that is happening, which has gone exponential in the last year. The phishing and vishing attacks. The credit card company calling them, they want you to verify your account or there's a problem. This is the police, you have a problem, you have to come and pay to get somebody out of jail, you have to pay because your car has now been impounded. The banks that are doing it. Banks have been hit for 37 million, okay, in the UK, just for wire transfer of people hacking in and talking to a call center person to wire out money. Pure voice phishing attacks. Okay, last year was the biggest year for the IRS calling and saying, you owe money. If you do not wire it to us now, we will seize your house. Okay, the ever popular, Grandma, I'm on vacation and I've been arrested or I've been hurt. Please wire me money and don't tell Mom. Okay, this one's gone up. Okay, cramming is a common problem. Everybody sees things stuck onto your phone bill and you go, what the hell is that? Oh, it's only $2, never mind. $2 times 100,000 customers makes for a hell of a big scam. Okay, and the WAN grill, WAN-Giri, which is frequently now a WhatsApp attack or an SMS attack. What was a business model in India of you call someone like the pizza parlor and they call you back to take your order has now become one of the biggest problems in terms of fraud because they give you a phony call and tell you to call back, or people will call back automatically to a premium rate number. Here in the States, it's all of those numbers that go to the Dominican Republic or the Caribbean, where it looks like it's a toll-free number, but it really is $3 a minute. Okay? These are not targeting your PBX. These are not targeting your normal Asterisk customers. I'm not going to talk about them anymore. These are big problems. These are social engineering problems. There ain't no way to cure stupid. Okay? Back when I was doing regular networking, there was the ever-popular BS and K problem between seat and keyboard. Okay? Nothing you can do will fix the fact that people are going to get phished for these attacks. Okay? New things are happening. People are doing robocalling and you get a call, and the system listens to hear if it's a machine answering, no answer, or a voice. And then they go and they sell these phone numbers to people for large amounts of money, and all it is at the start of an attack. So if you get a phone call and you go, hello, hello, and there's nobody there, chances are it's somebody using an Asterisk or other system to robocall you to find out if your number is a real person or a fax machine. Okay. The good news is there are fewer cases being reported in the news that aren't phishing-related attacks. Okay? There were 75 phishing-related attacks over the last year. I did not take them down. Every so often you find the Philippines or China go and arrest 75 people involved in a phishing call center and things like that. Okay? Back in October, just a little north of here in Georgia, you had an architecture firm, does furniture, got hit with 166,000 worth of calls to Gambia, Somalia, and the Maldives. Okay? They hit them over the weekend, they hacked the system, and they did premium rate calls. Then again, in March, there was another one in Maryland in Ocean City where you had a lot of customers who were getting the same kind of thing for $2 million total. Again, the attacks were Gambia, the Ascension Islands, etc. All sorts of places where if you have no business, block those calls on the outgoing. Okay? The average customer here in the United States does not have a reason to be doing phone calls to lots of strange Afghanistan, Somalia, these countries. There's lists of standard places. Look at what your normal business is. Okay? Look at what your customers' businesses are. If there is a legitimate reason for them to be doing a call out internationally, limit it to one phone number or one person, one extension, and block it. These are things you can do in Asterisk. Set up a dial rule that basically says these numbers go into failed circuit, no rollover. Use the various anti-fraud systems, SIP protections, things like that that are out there. When we first started talking, Nir and I, there were 2 or 3 products out there aimed at carriers, one aimed at enterprise-level PBXs. Now there are 3 or 4 that are coming at the enterprise, not counting pin drop. Pin drop is designed strictly for listening for voice stress fraud. It will not tell if the call is a authorized or not authorized call. It will tell whether or not the person talking sounds like they're stressed. Okay, and they're doing a great job on call centers for banks and credit cards. Don't get me wrong. That's, again, social engineering. Okay? Notice, though, that these two particular hits were over weekends, and they were both premium rate to unusual locations. Look at your CDR reports, look at what's going on, see where the calls are going, because you don't want to be surprised in 30 days when the bill shows up. Okay? After hours calls, weekends, holidays, these are prime targets because nobody's going to notice that the phone doesn't work because the circuits are completely full. Okay. Unfortunately, telephone denial of service attacks are up. This one I wasn't sure where to label it. It's not exactly a PBX level problem, and it's not a phishing problem. It's blackmail. So they will take out 911 systems or hospital phone numbers or businesses, and they will just hit you constantly with phone calls to block your circuits and extort money out of you to freeze it. Okay? It's a big problem right now. Keep this in mind and keep an eye on it. There are a couple of firewalls and fail-to-bans and things like that that help a little, but this is going to become a big problem over the next couple of years. It's easier to extort money and have people send bitcoins or Western unions than it is to actually break in. Okay. The times are changing. VoIP 15 years ago, okay, when I started doing VoIP, back then it was voice over frame relay, back in '97. And we ran into problems where suddenly if they were doing a fax call, all the other circuits went dead. You're in the middle of a phone call and suddenly you lose the circuit because somebody went and ran a fax because we couldn't compress the fax enough and they got priority. Now you run into problems because people like AT&T want to yank out their copper and do everything over VoIP. Okay? All over New York, other places they've been doing this. This has become a problem. Okay? So I'm going to start with some of the things that you should know about here in the US. You're an ITSP where? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I grew up in New Jersey. I truly apologize. Who do we have here that's, other than Canada, international? I think I've got everybody else is US-based? Okay, so some of my slides are not relevant to you. I wasn't sure if Rob was going to show up or others. The front row is the international row. Good. If you are a fixed internet VoIP provider, okay, which is defined as you allow real-time communication using a broadband connection that connects to an IP-compatible device that allows them to connect to the PSTN and terminate on other PSTN devices, okay? If you're going PBX to PBX and it's internal company over VoIP, that's a different set of things. But if you're an ITSP or you're allowing your customers to go through an ITSP to get out to other phones, mobile phones, anything else, you are now officially required to give lawful intercept capability if the cops come to you with a subpoena, okay? You are required by law to give 911. I'll go into that in a second. But back to our friends at AT&T. Because AT&T is yanking things out, back in August, the FCC came out with a new rule. You are required to offer 8-hour emergency battery backup for your VoIP circuit. All of the hardware on the VoIP circuit, the router, the telephone, everything else, you're required to offer it. You don't have to pay for it. They can choose to take it, and they get to pay for it for the next 3 years. 3 years from now, in 2018, you are required to offer 24-hour protection. Why? Because you need to have access to 911 services live all the time. Okay? This is unfortunately, by taking things out, it's a problem. Okay? 2 comments for the guys taking photos in the back. This will be posted on the Greenfield Tech website next week. The video, which I plug later, Digium is really good on putting the Astricon video clips. You'll see the young lady in the back recording me. These are supposed to be up mid-December, more or less. They'll announce them December or whatever. All of the videos that they take for the conference, you can go back in all the sessions you missed, you can watch then. Okay? The FCC now has the power and the authority to actually go and nail you if you don't follow the rules. Okay, the appeals court has basically turned around and said, yeah, they actually are allowed to enforce the rules. They can fine you. Okay? In a little bit, we'll talk about how some of this, the privacy issue, which is what triggered this particular ruling, we'll talk about a little bit later, because any of you, especially an ITSP, who, if you have international customers, last week you all got screwed by the safe harbor ruling. Okay, and this makes life interesting. But we'll get to that later. Okay, Minnesota law, the Public Utilities Commission went and came up with a consideration, which is becoming the norm in the US. ITSPs are now required to follow the standard rules of a telecom. Universal access fees, taxes, all of these things, including 911 services, you are now required to collect and give to the government. Up until recently, they left us alone. They've now suddenly realized, because of the complaints of the incumbents, this is real money that we should have been asking for before, and we have budget deficits. Give me the money. And they're going to start nailing you, so pay attention. Okay? Moving over to the EU for a second. 911 equivalents. Okay, in the EU it's 112. I always love on Facebook where people tell you to do certain things and you go, that only works in this country. 2 weeks ago it was the October 4th, we moved the clocks forward. It's like, yeah, if you're in Australia and New Zealand. The rest of us do it at the end of October, 28th of October for those of us in Israel, 1st of November, or first Sunday of November if you're in US and Canada. Actually, no, this year US and Canada are a week apart. Obama changed that on you guys. Now, the FCC and the EU basically have set the rules. You are not allowed to allow the customer to opt out of 911 services. So you now need to provide all of the 911 services, location, and all of the details from the customer to the government in case there's a 911 call. You can't just put out you used to get away with putting a disclaimer like Vonage does, 911 services aren't included. They've now changed the rules. You're now going to have to start doing that, and they're going to start enforcing that shortly. Okay. In the UK, Ofcom has started a review based on the fact that the mobile operators are all pissed that they're not getting any SMS money anymore. Okay? WhatsApp, Skype, Viber are taking voice over IP calls and SMSs and taking that revenue away from the carrier. So what they went and they started to complain, and they're now starting to do a review in the UK that will turn around and start requiring these services. I mean, can you imagine if Skype has to actually start following the same rules as BT? This is where the world is going now. VoIP is no longer a niche market. It's become the predominant technology. I spent the last 3 days dealing with a customer in Australia. Telstra only provides IP-based services. They bring in IP, put an IAD box, and then bring you a PRI off of that box in your office. But it's 100% fiber optic IP. We are now no longer the underdog. We are we are now part of the big guys now, so they're going to start changing the rules to make us follow too. So pay attention to these things. It's a big problem. Okay? Last month, there was a problem where a cold calling company in the UK got nailed with a £200,000 fine. It's about almost $275,000 fine for cold calling people to sell them solar panels. The scary part was, and the reason they got nailed with such a big fine, was this company's ignorance of the law was beyond belief. They didn't even bother to find out what the rules were before doing their cold calling campaign. They just got a mailing list and started calling everybody. Here, we can give you free panels. No idea if the offer was good, if it was a gimmick to, you pay us and we take the rebate back from the government. I'd have no idea how it was. They were calling against the rules. Pay attention where you are. Cold calling rules and call centers and robo-dialing are becoming very annoying to government people. With the exception of soliciting money for politicians, they're going to close it down for the rest of us. Okay, it's going to be like email where you're going to need opt-in phone calls. Up until now, you've gotten away with one free. They're trying to take that one free away from you. Okay? As it says in the UK, they should have an individual's permission to be cold called. Government logic. Give me permission so I'm allowed to call and harass you next time, and I'm not going to tell you why. How did I get the permission in the first place if I didn't talk to them to get the permission? Okay? Australia has just done something funky. They've now set up new metadata rules. As of the 13th, just a couple days ago, you are now required to store 90 days, and this is all telcos and ITSPs, 400 companies have to do data retention. All of the they're not asking for recordings of the calls, who called, who they called, how long the call was. Metadata has to be saved for at least 90 days. VoIP, 800 number, even missed calls. So if somebody attempted to call and it wasn't answered, you're still required to keep the metadata. Nobody says anything about how you're supposed to pay for all of the storage or the extra services or the reporting. Government doesn't care. You're now required to give it to something like 300 different police agencies if they ask for it. 20 government agencies plus all the federal and police forces. Okay? And if you fail to give it to them when they ask for it, okay, and you have something like 48 hours to give it if they ask, it can be a 2 million Australian dollar fine for failing to give them the data that they ask for. Not exactly playing nice with us anymore. Okay? Things to watch in the next year. How am I doing on time? 10 minutes. Oh, plenty of time. Okay? Let's start with, we have two people to thank for the end of Safe Harbor. One is Mr. Snowden, okay, who proceeded to tell everybody the United States government is doing what every other frickin' government in the world is doing. Okay? The rules that have taken the Safe Harbor out last week, if you look at exactly the reason why they said that the US is no longer a safe place to bring data to because of the government ability to subpoena the data or scan the data or look what's going into the data, is exactly identical, almost word for word, to the law in Germany, France, and England. Forget Russia, India, the Gulf countries. The ability for the governments to look in on what you're doing, and what companies like Apple did and Google did by encrypting from the phone out to the carrier so the carrier can't provide unencrypted, is being challenged as literally being illegal. And they're trying to fight that to make Apple take the encryption off of your phone. Okay? They are looking to force you to put in IAX2, a backdoor so you can unencrypt the call so they can listen in. Okay? Big Brother wants to be able to listen, and they are now using all of the various things of attacks in the US. We've had, 40 different shootings or terrorist attacks this year already here in the US. Forget Europe and Israel, I don't need to tell you that. Okay? So they're working on changing the new rules for safe harbor to allow you to do this again. But remember, we're telecom companies. Is a CDR personal data? Are credit card numbers personal data? If you have traveling employees or employees who are abroad and you have HR data, okay, at what point are you now potentially subject to United States subpoena? Okay, I'm waiting to see this whole thing with Microsoft and the email servers. Everybody's heard about this one? Okay, the United States government wanted to get emails off of a particular potential terrorist. And they subpoenaed the information from Microsoft because they were using Bing email or one of the Outlook emails or whatever it is they're using. And they gave them certain little bit of data and said, we can't give you the rest, it's located on the Ireland server. A United States subpoena does not allow us to give you data stored in another country, it's against their laws. It's now gone to the United States Courts of Appeal, and they're now saying the safe harbor rule of last week is going to say why it's going to be against the United States government's best interest to try and enforce this. And Microsoft is now trying to say, you cannot enforce American laws on an Irish system. And no, you can't claim that we're one big company, so where the data is doesn't matter. This is like Google with the taking down the search options in the EU for privacy. Okay, we'll take it off on any EU domain, but .com is still going to be available. And that one has become a nesting problem. So now as the newspapers put in references to articles that were taken down, so they're no longer in Google, but they're now in an article or a list that tells you of all of the things that have been taken down, so they're now accessible again. And it just becomes a rolling thing as to where does this whole thing end. Our biggest problem over the next 10 years, I would imagine, is the fact that governments want more data, want to give privacy to their citizens, these two being mutually exclusive goals, and they're going to continue having different rules for different jurisdictions. Okay? In the United States, you have rules for all 50 states, plus the federal rules. Okay? That doesn't count Puerto Rico and Guam and other places where they can't quite figure out, or even DC. You're not a state, but you're not actually federal, so the rules are different there. Okay? Europe is trying to pretend that there's still one country. 17 different countries pretending that EU is one country with 17 different sets of laws, not counting their local bureaucracy. Our lives are going to get more complicated as they try to make these things simplified. Because their version of simplified is going to be, we get everything, you get nothing. Tough. Okay? This, unfortunately, is the way the world is going. We, as telecom people, have to pay attention because we are no longer working local communities only. Okay? We've got customers on, I think we figured out, we've got customers on every continent except Antarctica, and we've got one customer who said he'll let me know the minute they open an office there. It's no longer a local game. It's too easy to be multinational, multi-tenant, multi-everything, okay? And this is not counting mobile phones that now have multiple SIM cards and allow you to do roaming and stuff. I'm just talking straight telecom where you put the PBX. So pay attention, things are gonna change, okay? Since I'm coming up on the end of this, I'm giving the official shameless plug about other talks here at Astricon. At 11:40, Nir will be on a panel related to ARI. If you want to understand or ask questions about PHP ARI, and we do have more stickers, ARI in general, various things like that, Nir, Gaston, and Matt Jordan will be over in the Coral Sea room, 2 doors down, I think it is. Actually, it's the one, not where we had DevCon, the one after that. Okay? At 2:25, Arik, who's sitting here in the front, will be talking about adding VoIP to mobile applications. So we've been having a lot of fun with writing VoIP SDKs and He'll talk about some of the pluses and minuses and how you can do that stuff. The talks that you may have missed yesterday, Nir and Or were both talking about things related to ARI. Nir, again, was PHP ARI. Again, shameless plug. Or was talking about how to do things security-wise on the client end. All of the rules have been, when you're doing things with ARI and doing things, do the security on the server. There's a way to actually take that out all the way to the client end and stuff. These will be available. RX Talk, My Talk, everybody will be available on the official YouTube channel. Like I said, I was told to say middle of December. The target, I understand, is going to be they will be on YouTube in December. Realistically, they should send an email. You could start looking for these things middle of December. On the other hand, you can always go back and look at all of our various security presentations for the last 4 Astricons. So we've got various things there. Okay? Here's how to contact me. Any questions? Yes?
About the silent call, what's the purpose of the silent call afterwards? The silent call itself, you can check if it's a living person.
Okay. Silent call. The ghost calls.
What's the purpose of your number?
One second. Ghost calls. Okay, the robocalls coming to your device, and what they're doing is they're now selling these as numbers for people to use for phishing. The way they used to steal, shoulder surf for your credit card number, whatever else, they are looking to do these things for phishing attacks. So if you actually answer the call, then they know it's a real person. It's worth actually having somebody try and call and social engineer the person answering. Okay? But it's a technology question also. Okay, so do you want to put in a 3-second delay on the person actually hears a voice? But this is a new, again, social engineering at the technical level. Who do I attack? I don't want to sell a list of 100,000 numbers and find out half of them are, well, it's no longer modems, but fax machines or other devices that never get answered. I want to actually make sure that there's a real live body there that I can screw. Okay? So if they actually, especially if you answer and give a company name or a personal name or something like that, or they get an answering machine that says, hi, this is so-and-so, leave a message, they've now got enough information that they can record that when they call back and they actually find a human being, they can now say, hi, so-and-so, or they can now go and try and Facebook or Google you and go, if they get a voice of somebody who sounds old, they'll go, hi, Grandma, I've got a problem, and they are doing this a lot for social engineering. It's become a very big thing in the last 6 months. Robocallers and things like that are easy to implement, dirt cheap, and open source. And you just start running down an entire block of numbers, and you can do it the same way you used to do ping sweeps. Nothing to it, and the computer can now in a half an hour, you can easily do an entire area code. Other questions? Now, I apologize. I had a whole bunch of things I was considering putting in for Africa, Asia Pacific, and places like that are still questioning whether or not VoIP is legal, whether or not requiring that you break the system and break it with lawful intercept and encryption things and stuff are legal, what they can do. What they're doing in Russia is terrifying in terms of the authority that the Russian government is trying to get on internet providers and ITSPs to basically say, we have the right to record and watch every click or every call that a person makes. Okay? The other thing is China is a lot of fun. Okay? You're all familiar with Skype. Okay? Whether you like it or you don't, there's a different version of Skype in China. Now, heaven forbid you receive a Skype call from somebody in China. The Chinese government has a tap into Skype, and the version that they use allows them to record that, and it used to be, I don't know if it still does, enables them to now record every call you ever do. Once you've received that first call, it resets your Skype to allow them to do it. This was about 1.5 years ago that I found this one out.
Does it help if you uninstall and reinstall?
Yes, if you uninstall and reinstall Skype, you now have a clean copy, but their version is different, and it makes you update yours to match theirs, and you have to uninstall it completely and then reinstall. It's not tied at the number, it's actually at the client level.
So infectious.
Yes, so effectively they're hitting you with a hack infection through the government. Okay, this is ignoring all of the questions about what exactly does Huawei have required to stick in as unofficial code? or various other things that are kind of funky, and it's a problem. So, anything else? Past cases that we've had that you might want to take a look at the YouTube clips. Like I said, we had the $400,000 over 2 days. I mean, I was amazed. We had somebody in a panel actually get up and say, my company was hacked, was defrauded for $200,000, and the only reason we found out about it was not our ITSP, but their internet carrier proceeded to come back and say, there's something wrong, we're cutting them off. And that was a case of somebody who had headquarters stick an Asterisk box into his server room, connected to his internet, and never actually gave him the codes or anything to go in and do updates. So it was running 2-year-old everything, and anybody who had found any exploits were able to hack that in. We also had a case where somebody had said, well, our IT guy has left, we need to reconfigure the PBX. Can you tell me how to reset the password on the PBX to the default setting? Which is fine. It required manually touching the box. It's not like somebody was hacking in. So they told him, I don't remember whose box it was, they told them how to do it. During the next 5 minutes, they went and logged in themselves to that PBX using the default password and watched. From the time of reboot and reconnecting to the internet to the time it was hacked was under 10 minutes because they reset it to the default password and never changed it again. Okay? The 2 worst words for telecom, admin, admin. Okay? You all have customers using VoIP phones. How many of you actually changed the administrator password on every frickin' phone? I see 4, 5, 6 people in the room, okay? Every phone can be hacked, and when we were in Atlanta 2 years ago, we actually got up and I showed how you can find all of these phones using one of the web search engines, and Nero came up for his talk after mine, did a search, showed a Polycom phone. From the time he had it on the screen to the time somebody in the audience had connected to the first phone listed using admin, admin, was a minute and a half. Guy was sitting there with his computer going, I wonder, I'm in. It is scary. And you can take that phone and now find out its phone number and set it up to do automatic rerouting. So people need to remember the phone on your desk is hackable, the PBX in your server room is hackable, and I won't even talk about these. Okay? This is an IP PBX for all effective purposes. I don't care if it's an Apple or an Android-based phone. It is a system that can be hacked, and they can hack in and change it to make phone calls out without you being aware of it until you get the bill at the end of the month. Okay? Security is a scary thing. Remember it and scare your customers, scare your employers, because this is going to continue being a cat and mouse game for the next 50 years. Telecom fraud has been going on since the 50s. Okay, last year we met up with Captain Jack, John Draper, who did the original, Captain Crunch. Okay, with the whistle to get the AT&T circuits to think that he was an inter-carrier trunk and let him have free calls. Okay, stupid little whistle that he got in a box of cereal. Whistled it in, it was the right tone, they authenticated him. Okay, this was back in the 50s and 60s. Steve Jobs did the blue boxes. This stuff is not going away. It's too ripe a target, it's too easy to get, and it's free money. Don't be the low-hanging fruit, please. I think that kills my time.
It does.
Thank you all.